Can everybody please come up a little bit? Chandra, why do you sit so far away?
So I can listen to you, but people can hear, or that's really why.
Or you can come up a little bit closer. Krishna, come forward a little bit. As it is, the class is in a kind of a longitudinal. Oh, good. Perfect.
I can like get a battery.
Is it? But it's
just
moving.
It's moving.
Yeah, I think that we will. Is it a double?
Single. I didn't check. I think it looks like a. I'll check
Okay,
it out.
we'll check it. Okay. Now we're ready to go. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Mauna Vyakhya Prakatita Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvanam Vashistante Vasat Rishiganai Avritam Brahmanishtai Acharyendram Karakalita Chinmudram Anandarupam Swatma Ramam Mudita Vadanam Dakshinamurti Mide Vatavitapi Samipe Bhumi Bhage Nishannam Sakalamuni Jananam Jnanadataram Harat Tribhuvana Gurumisham Dakshinamurti Devam Janana Marana Dukkha Cheda Daksham Namami Chitram Vatataror Mule Vriddha Shishya Gurur Yuva Gurostu Maunam Vyakhyanam Shishyastu Chinna Samshaya Nidhaye Sarva Vidyanam Bhishaje Bhavaroginam Gurave Sarva Lokanam Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Namah Pranavarthaya Shuddha Jnanaikamurtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Vishwam Darpana Dishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nijantargatam Pashyannatmani Mayaya Bhairivo Bhutam Yatha Nidraya Yat Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanamevatvayam Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Bijasyantarivānkuro Jagadidam Prāṅ Nirvikalpam Punaha Maya Kalpita Desha Kalakalam Chitri Kritam Maya Viva Vichrambayatyapi Maha Yogi Vayasvechaya Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Yasyaiva Sphuranam Sadatmakam Asatkalparthakam Bhasate Sakshat Tattvamasi Veda Vachasa Yo Bodhayatya प्रत्याश्रितान् यत् साक्षात् करणात् भवेन पुनरावृत्तिर्भवाम्भो निधौ तस्मै श्री गुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्री दक्षिणामूर्तये नानाचित्रघटोदरस्थितमहा दीपप्रभाभास्वरम् ज्ञानं यस्य तु चक्षुरादिकरणद्वारा बहिस्पन्दते जानामि इति तमेव भान्तमनुभात्येतत् समस्तं जगत् तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये देहं प्राणमपि इन्द्रियानपि चलां बुद्धिं च शून्यं विदुः स्त्रीबालान्दजडोपमास्त्वहमिति भ्रान्ताभृशं वादिनः मायाशक्तिविलासकल्पितमः व्यामोहसंहारिणे तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये राहुग्रस्तदिवाङ्करेन्दुसदृशो मायासमाच्छादनात् सन्मात्रः करणोपसंहरणतो यो भूत्सुषुप्तः पुमान् प्रागस्वाप्समिति प्रबोधसमये यः प्रत्यभिज्ञायते तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं दक्षिणामूर्तये बाल्यादिषु अपि जाग्रदादिषु तथा सर्वास्वस्थास्वपि व्यावृत्तास्वनुवर्तमानमहम् इत्यन्तःस्फुरन्तं सदा स्वात्मानं प्रकटीकरोति भजतां यो मुद्रया भद्रया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये विश्वं पश्यति कार्यकारणतया स्वस्वामिसम्बन्धतः शिष्याचार्यतया तथैव पुत्राध्यात्मना भेदतः स्वप्ने जागृति वा य एष पुरुषो माया परिभ्रामितः तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये भूरम्भांस्य नलो निलोऽम्बर्महर्नार्थो हिमांशुः पुमान् इत्याभाति चराचरात्मकमिदं यस्यैव मूर्त्यष्टकम् नान्यत् किञ्चिन विद्यते विमृशताम् यस्मात् परस्मात् विभोः तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये सर्वात्मत्वमिति स्फुटीकृतमिदं यस्मादमुष्मिन्स्तवे तेनास्य श्रवणात् तदर्थमननात् ध्यानाच्च संकीर्तनात् सर्वात्मत्वमहाविभूतिसहितं स्यादीश्वरत्वं स्वतः सिद्ध्ये तत्पुनरष्टधा परिणतं चैश्वर्यमव्याहतम्। We should look upon all these 10 verses by Adi Shankara as pieces of a puzzle. So this is a very well enunciated truth that when we are, as you know, we have talked about this many times, and you should be, I'm sure you're very familiar with this, that the only way you can look at yourself as you are is through a reflecting surface. And we can't even see our eyes without a reflecting surface, let alone our face. So a reflecting surface is essential. So what happens is that if the reflecting surface is very clean and stable and without any dirt, very clear, very nicely clear, so on, then the image it gives you is very accurate to who you are. But if the reflecting surface is giving you a reflection, but it may have some defects, it may have some cracks, it may have some dirt on it, it may be moving like a water, a number of different defects can be there, in which case you kind of get an idea of who you really are, but not as accurately that will make you smile. So also is the study of Vedanta. So what happens is that in our case, our mind is the reflecting surface. And what happens is that our mind is not an accurate, clean, stable, without parts, reflection of who we really are. So therefore, we get a distorted view. We get a view. Anytime you ask a question to someone, how are you doing? Then the answer will come back in a variety of combinations. I'm doing okay, but I'm not completely okay. I'm happy about this, unhappy about that. And so you have some kind of a view of yourself. Because we can actually ask you, how are you feeling these days? We can ask that, and the person says, I'm not very happy these days. That's a different question. But if we ask a question to someone and say, how are you? Who are you? Tell me about yourself. That description will be based on your mind. How you assess yourself. Your mind is the one that gives you that assessment. And so this is what the first verse, Atma Pratyak Swarupam, as we discussed it before also when we went over that first verse, that really speaking, you cannot tell who you are by how you feel about yourself, because it is distorted and it keeps changing. And sometimes you feel, I'm okay, I think I'll make this through this life very well. Sometimes you feel, I don't know what's happening to me. On my life, this is not making much progress. I don't know where I'm going. All kinds of self-assessments can take place, which are really not distorted, which are not very accurate. They're distorted. And so therefore, in some ways, the best reflecting surface is a combination of what Shastra tells you, because the Shastra is really a mirror to who you really are. And if you don't understand what the Shastra is saying, which we don't, Shastra says, do you know that you are Jagat Karanam, Ajam, never born, free of all problems. This is what the Shastra says. And Shastra is not lying. These Ishvara's words. Ishvara doesn't lie. It tells you like it is. But we don't get it. So, really speaking, the text that we are studying is an accurate reflection. But since we study the text through a distorted mind, then I don't see the clean surface because my mind is not clean. Mind is not clean means that I have not done all of the requirements of understanding. It just goes right over me. And you say that, and most of the time what happens is that either it goes over me because I don't even say what are you, because we talk to any one of our friends and family members and so on, and they ask you, what are you studying? And so you say, I'm talking about the Atma, and you say, well, what about the Atma? And say, the Shastra says that I am never born. They'll just dismiss it and say, I don't know what you're talking about. But even us, we don't really get a group picture. We don't grasp it. And but that is the true picture. So therefore, going back to it, so in some ways, it's a puzzle where each of the pieces has to be fitting together very nicely. And if you do that, then the fitted pieces comes out as a full picture. It's like, you have very pieces of the puzzle that are slowly coming together. They're not together yet, they're slowly, but you have a glimpse of what the picture is, but it's not a very clean, unbroken picture, a reflection of yourself. And so really speaking, each one of the verses is pieces of the puzzle, and some parts of it must be clear, just like, when you're building a puzzle, then whether it is the tail of a horse or is it something else, that part must be clear. So identifying, so this is exactly each of the verses, the meaning of the words of the verses is to identify what the particular verse is saying. So this is what is called Shabdartha. Shabdartha means the meaning of the words. That means that the particular puzzle piece must be clearly seen. If you're not looking at the thing, if your eyes are closed or if they are dirty or something, then you cannot see even the puzzle. But the puzzle should be seen. But you haven't put it together with the other ones. The whole picture is not clear, but at least just that part of it should be clear. So this is what we call Shabdartha. Then comes Vakyartha. The Vakyartha means that the whole thing becomes very clear. As we will see, the Mahavakya, Tattvamasi, some description of that will be given. So this is what it is. It's really what we need to do is to be locally clear. Locally clear means for each of the pieces of the puzzle, we must have clarity. What does it look like? And then globally, I have to be patient until the whole thing comes together. And I can tell you, this is what happens. You keep on studying and so on, and it starts to slowly become clear. The whole picture about oneself becomes clear. Swami Dayananda, I remember when we started our PRC course in 1979, the Polaroid camera was the rage. Polaroid camera. Because until then, you had to take a picture and then wait. You don't know what it looks like, and you have to take multiple pictures. And then once you have to wait until all the 24 reels or 36 reels or pictures in a reel are done. You can't do anything until then. It's too expensive. Then you take it to someone, and then they develop it, and then they'll call you and say it is now ready. Then you have to go back. Then you look at the picture. This was the process. So when the Polaroid came, that was a big thing. I remember those days. Swamiji was so fond of it. He used to look at this picture, Polaroid, right there. But in the Polaroid picture, what Swamiji felt was that you take a picture, and as you know, there is nothing there right away. It's just a gray picture, just a gray paper. Then, slowly, the picture starts emerging. And I don't know which one comes first. They must have some kind of a technical, black comes first or red or something like this. But you see disparate pieces come out. Then you can start to see, oh, this is a person and there is somebody else standing next to me. And then but it's still very vague. Still very vague. Up to a point, then you say, yeah, this is me. This is me. And then it starts to become clearer and clearer. It takes a little while. And Swamiji used to say, this is a very good example of the study of Vedanta. I remember that so well. He used to give this example to everyone. And that is that when you first start to put it together, some pieces of it become, and some portions of it become clear, but the whole thing doesn't quite come together. And when will your whole thing become clear? When your mind is so happy with yourself, it doesn't want to think about anything else in the world. That is when the clarity comes. Until then, there are portions of time when you are okay with yourself, you're happy with yourself. Immediately something else attracts you and you lose the appreciation of the self. And that is not, you haven't reached it yet. It's not clear yet. You have some glimpses of yourself, but not a clarity, not a steady picture about yourself. This is what happens. So anyway, this is the process that we all have to go through. And unfortunately, many people drop off. And they'll say, though it's not yet clear to me, it must be something else. And we are very lucky, fortunate that many of us persist with the teaching, because slowly it is like a Polaroid picture that comes together. So anyway, each of the 10 verses of the Dakshinamurti Stotram are a piece of the puzzle that gives you certain aspects of yourself, aspects of your life, your experiences. Because I'm making conclusions and decisions about myself that are distorted. I'm just a small person sitting here, and the whole world is different. This is what I start with. But ultimately it all comes together. So in doing that, the first verse that we saw, and just like in the Bhagavad Gita also, there are multiple things going on. So there is a trend of the Bhagavad Gita, and then there are trends within the trends. So for example, the first 6 chapters, and the trends are not as though, like for example, suppose there are things that you talk about the individual, Jivatma, and things that you talk about Paramatma. So it's not as though the first 6 chapters are only going to be about Jivatma. Not a single Paramatma will be done. It's not like that. So it would all be introduced together, but the emphasis may be on the Jivatma, as it is. On the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, the main emphasis is on Jivatma, even though Paramatma is also discussed. Then in the 7th through the 12th chapter, we are going to focus on the Paramatma. Then in the 13th through the 18th chapter, there is the identity of the two. So it's not as though in the 7th through the 12th chapter, Jivatma is not tackled. It is continuously tackled, but the focus is on some particular aspects of it. Similarly here in the Dakshinamurti Stotram, the first verse has two focuses or foci. One is Jivatma, and the other one is our knowledge. In other words, we have, as you know, we have three aspects to ourselves. One is our presence and Sat, what is called Sat Swarupam. So Sat Swarupam means what is, who am I? What do I look like? And the second aspect of that is my awareness. And it turns out that what I am and my awareness are one and the same thing. So Sat Swarupa and Chit Swarupa is one and the same thing. But from two different angles, we can say that one aspect of myself is that I am. And the other aspect is that I know. And the third aspect of that is that I am Ananda Swarupa. So these are the three aspects. Now in the first verse, the two particular focus is on the Jivatma. And the second focus is on my Chit Swarupam. And in fact, Chit Swarupam will be a focus for several verses. 1, 2, 3, 4, I forget how many verses, but it'll continue on. Then the focus will change to Sat Swarupam. So right now it is the first verse and the second and the third. The focus is on Chit Swarupam. So if you go back and read it, you will say how knowledge is communicated. All about a consciousness. And the starting point is a Jivatma in the first verse. Then in the second verse, Bijasya in Ivang Kuro Jagadidam, then Maya Kalpita Deva Kala Karana Vaichitya Chitrikatam Mayavi Ifi Vijrambivi Mahayogi. So these words are Paramatma Swarupa. So one is the Jivatma and the second one is Paramatma. Okay? And the focus on knowledge is still the same. Again, if you go back to the Manasa Ullasa verses of the first verse, it's not as though the Paramatma is not discussed. It is. Same thing on the second verse, Jivatma is also part of it. So just like in Bhagavad Gita, it's not as though you are compartmentalizing and not really, they're not letting each other grow. So the whole thing is given, but there is in fact a focus on certain aspects for clarity. And so this is the thing, is the first verse is Jivatma, Chit Swarupam. The second verse is Paramatma Chit Swarupam. Then the third verse, which we are going to begin today, is to introduce that the Paramatma Chit Swarupa and Jivatma Chit Swarupa are one and the same. They are not any different. They are just looking at it from two different angles, but don't think about that as being completely separated. In fact, what happens, this is something that we should be aware of, is that when we begin our inquiry and study, then our view of Ishvara, Paramatma, is someone different from me. I am here and Paramatma is doing something else. He is taking care of the whole world. I don't know how he's doing it, but I'm told that he's doing it. He's taking care of, as Vishnu, he's the preserver, as Shiva, and as Brahmaji, and so on and so forth. All kinds of stuff is going on. And I may be part of it, but I have to be concerned with myself, my life, my form, where am I going, and so on. So there is in fact a difference between Jivatma and Paramatma. Okay. Then there will be a switch. This is still evolving, this is not the final answer. What is not the final answer? That my search, my way of looking at things is me as a limited person, and Ishvara, I'm in Ishvara's world. The next one, which is the more evolved view, is that Ishvara is in fact operating through me. I am just the expression of Ishvara alone. So Ishvara is not away from me, it is me. This is what the study will lead to, or should lead to. If it hasn't reached, then we are not at the doorstep of the final picture about myself. So it is very much like a wave saying that I'm just a wave and the whole ocean is different from me. It's an enormous ocean and it's got lots of parts that are impinging on me. There are bigger waves that are engulfing me and I have to struggle. And I'm not going to last too long. All those kinds of things. So you make a distinction between the wave and the ocean. And then the guru wave has to come along and says, this is not right. There is no difference between you and the ocean. In fact, the ocean is expressing itself as you. And until that is understood, the worry of the existence of the wave is not over. He still thinks I'm not going to last too long. So therefore, the identity of Paramatma and Jivatma has to be understood. And that understanding cannot take place unless we have gone through. See, because you can oversimplify this into kind of like 3 stages. So one stage is where you don't even think about Ishvara. You don't think about the totality of it. You don't understand how the whole thing works and you don't care. You're completely on your own. And you're just dealing with the day-to-day problems and so on and so forth. Not happy with it, but you don't think there's anybody who can help you, really. You have to help yourself. And there's nothing else that can help you. This is the first stage. Then finally, after, if you are fortunate and if you have had some troubles in life, and a combination of combination of troubles, you may open up your minds and say, well, maybe there is something going on that I missed before. Is it? And you come to the right place, they'll say, yes. You are not looking at it the right way. There is something funny going on that you should be aware of. You have had a very long history and you're going to, you have a good future if you move in the right direction. All those kinds of things. In fact, the presence of Ishvara. So this is can be summarized as the third Purushartha. So the first one is Artha, then Kama and Dharma. Dharma means that there's some ethics involved. And that comes in when the future is kept in mind. So you have to go through the sadhana and then study and inquire. Study means to inquire, sincerely inquire. And if you do, the first thing that appears to you is that Ishvara is different from me. And if you continue to study more, the next stage of this subtle truth is, I am non-different from Ishvara. In fact, the sense of limitedness that I have, which is called ahankara, is the false notion. In fact, it is nothing but Ishvara. That the fact that I am a wave is just a nama rupa that I have given to myself. There is no substance to it. The substance is the water. Similarly here, the ahankara is just the nama rupa. But the basic consciousness which is the same as Ishvara, same as Brahman, that's who I really am. That is my substance. And my body-mind is nothing but nama rupa. And so that means really the substance is Ishvara. Substance is Paramatma. And it's the same as Jivatma. But I have some Jivatvam that I have superimposed on top of that. So that is the next stage. So in that sense, the piece of the puzzle that Adi Shankara is providing here in the third verse is to go to the next stage, if you may, of saying that please at least introduce to your mind the identity between yourself and Paramatma. You may not completely understand it, this is okay, but we have to start somewhere. These are the doors that you have to go through. Open these doors into the inner sanctum of understanding. So that is the third verse. So here, one thing you will see in this third verse is that the focus continues to be on consciousness. Even though sadatmakam will come, but the focus is on spuranam. So spuranam means one which is conscious, one which gives rise to life. So that is the spuranam. That is the focus on here also. So I think we can just go through the word meanings first, then see the sentence meaning. You may have already done so anyway. So these are rearranged Anvaya Artha by Swami Maheshananji. I'm just taking that and translating it from Hindi to English. Yasya, whose sadatmakam sphuranam eva, whose existence, whose reality, whose truth, which later on will be explained as something which is non-changing. So this is something that we will go through even today, which will be that if there is something changing, there is no truth to it. By itself, there is no truth to it. So the very definition of truth is that it should not appear differently. It should always be the same. So that is the sense here. We'll go back to it. Yasya sadatmakam sphuranam. So sadatmakam here means self-existence, non-dependent on anything. And sphuranam also means self-effulgent. Effulgence means I am, the very thought I am. Then yasya sadatmakam sphuranam eva asatkalparthakam bhasate. Asatkalparthakam bhasate. So I can pause here and just talk about this word for a second. Okay. So, so the word kalpa means which is taken, or you can say taken as. Taken as. So asat kalpa here means it is not asat. It is not asat, but asat kalpa. So this is an important thing to see. Why? Because so there are really three things that we should think about. One is sat. So one is sat, and the second one is asat. So let's try a new one, asat again here. And the third one is sat. Asat bhyam, I'm just simplifying it. Anirvachaniyam. Sat asat bhyam anirvachaniyam equal to what is called mithya. So this is very simple stuff that we should have known by now, but I'm just revising it. So there are, really speaking, Vedanta says that the whole world, this is the Srishti of Ishvara, this is how Ishvara has made the Srishti, very ingenuous, amazing, into three parts, not in two parts. So this is one of the basic tenets we must be very clear about, that the whole Srishti is in three parts. One is called a Sat, and the definition of Sat is one that never changes, under no circumstances, unconditionally true. Unconditionally true. And asat means under no circumstance it will be there. No way. And so the examples of this are a square circle. Not too many examples. So Vandhya Putra, is the classical example in the Shastra. The son of a barren woman. And these days with all these kinds of scientific ways, so even that is probably not asat. You can have a barren woman can give birth to a child. But I think square circle, there's no such thing as a square circle. And so the asat is very few, but means non-existent, not possible. Most of the things are neither sat nor asat, but sat asat bhyam. Bhyam means apart from, different from both sat and asat. Anirvachani means we don't know whether it is sat or not. Sat is something in between. And so this is, as you know, the example of a cup, a clay cup. So the cup is really a clay. It is not a separate. So, for example, when you say clay, and then you say a cup, these are not two separate objects. They're not two separate objects. It's not as though, okay, I'm going to take the clay and you take the cup. You cannot walk away with the cup. In fact, the weight of the cup is the weight of the clay. The color of the cup is the color of the clay. The guna of the cup is the guna. Everything is borrowed from clay. And the only thing that cup has is in namarupa, name and form. So this is what is called Satkalpa. Asatkalpa, Asatkalpa means it is like an asat, but not asat. And Swami Maheswaranji makes a distinction. He says, this is what our discussion with the Buddhists is. Buddhists say that the whole world is asat. And in fact, there will be no shrishti if it is different from the sat. So really speaking, it is asat kalpa. And so going back to here, asat kalparthakam means things that appear to be real, but are really not real. So when you focus on the cup, you don't really focus on the clay, you're just only focusing on the utility of the cup. I want a big cup of water. That's all you're talking about. You don't say clay, but it's really borrowed everything from clay itself. And so, yasya spuranam eva asat kalparthakam bhasate. We'll go into this in more detail. I'm just giving you this word meaning. Bhasate means one that cognizes. The cognition of things. So, just hold on for a second. So, just look at the word meaning. Cognizes. Ashritan. One who has. So, first one is the nature of Dakshinamurti. This is the nature of Dakshinamurti. To that effulgent being whose existence itself illumines objects that just appear to exist. This is the form of Dakshinamurti. And so the Dakshinamurti is also you. See, this is what we were talking about earlier. Dakshinamurti is not some gentleman, old gentleman sitting somewhere, but in fact operates through you. You are the one who is the effulgent being. And you are the one whose cognition illumines the objects in the world. So whether you call it Dakshinamurti, the big guy, or you, the small guy, it is one and the same. So this is what needs to be understood as we go through this whole thing. Anyway, let's continue on. Then, by whose teaching the disciples. So a very interesting word is used for the disciples. Ashritan. This is an important word, really. We can go on for a while, but I'll just briefly do some thing here. Ashritan is the word used for the students. Ashritan. And so you can even say means Ashrayavan means those who have taken refuge. Ashritan. This is a very important thing to see, that the subtlety of this knowledge can only happen if your focus and refuge and resort is to the teaching and the teacher. Casualness, you miss it. You miss it. You don't get the real sense of it. This is why I hesitate to do this online teaching, because I can't see people. So I ask you to come a little closer. And as Swami Viditatmanandaji also had said a long time ago, that really students learn from their relationship with you. Otherwise you can just be reading a book. And you read a book, the words are the same. But there is something personal that happens. And so this is the word called Ashraya, means the one who has taken refuge. Meaning that, that means that, I have done a lot of other things and I'm not sure that I'm getting anywhere. I am with you. Tell me what I should do. This is what is called Ashrita. In English we can just use disciples. What else can you do? But there's much more than that. So, by whose teaching, the Ashritan, so the first one was the nature of Dakshinamurti, Yasya Sadatmakam Spuranameva Asatkalpartakam Bhasate Ashritan Tattvamasi iti Veda Vachasa. That those Vedic sentences that are great. There are lots of sentences. Some hum is there.
No, I think.
Huh? Maybe just reduce it a little bit, perhaps.
Yeah.
A bit less. Yeah, good. So there are many sentences. So Mahavakya. There are many Vakyani. What makes it a Mahavakya? So the Mahavakya is those sentences. There are many of them. It's not, Tattvamasi is not the only one. Aham Brahmasmi, Ayam Brahma, etc. Lots of them. So what is so great about these sentences? What is great about them is that if you understand them, you become a Mahatma. You are freed from all limitations. If you understand the equation. You understand the equation, you are free. That's why they make them Mahavakya. As you know, the Mahavakya equation, if you look at the equation, as Swami Dayananda used to say, that for example, 8 is equal to 8 is really not even though it's an equation, it is not an equation. It doesn't mean. And then you say 8 is equal to 9 is not an equation. But what you say is 8 is equal to 2 cubed or 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus etc. etc. This is an equation. So here in this case what happens is that the right hand side doesn't look like the left hand side. But if you solve it, then you will find yes, they are the same. So therefore the identity between Paramatma and Jivatma are the two sides of an equation. They don't look like, they're not at all alike. So this is exactly what I was talking about, that the more advanced study means that Ishvara is none other than yourself. In fact, you are none other than the Ishvara. So that is that's the meaning of it. Who teaches his disciples these Vedic sentences, such as you indeed are that, Tattvamasi, and by whose teaching the disciples are freed from the seemingly unending experience of becoming. This is an important thing to also see. What do you mean by samsara when you say? So, here the word is so yasya eva sphuranam sadatmakam asatkalparth, and partha gam or kam is the same. There are some subtle differences between kam and gam, but they are the same. Bhasate sakshat tattvamasiti veda vachasa yo bodhayati ashritan. Okay, so the word sakshat here is also an important one. So sakshat means that through the teaching you get the immediate effect of it. You don't say, I will study this later. If your mind says, this sounds good, I am going to have to study later, this is not sakshat. So what do I need to do? Then what, and this is what this is going to happen to you. Hopefully one of these may have already happened. But if not, what is going to happen is that one time when your mind is ready, the same word spoken to you will have an immediate effect. Oh, you'll say, my goodness, I can't believe it. That teaching is called sakshat teaching. Immediate and direct, not later. And also by the same token, this thing called Bhava Ambho Nidhau, called the ocean of the, normally translated as the ocean of samsara. So these kinds of words, these kinds of descriptions, they leave us with no real understanding. Ocean of samsara. Okay, so we say this is an ocean of samsara. Okay, fine, I understand ocean of samsara. What is it? How does it really do that? So here, this is what the teaching is all about from our teacher, Swami Dayanandji had made this so well. If you really now go back and study some of his teachings and so on, he's a great contribution he made to us. So what he said was that our life is characterized by the following experience. All of us, everyone. What it means, it has a twofold, so this is, you could say, is the definition of samsara. Or you should say ocean of samsara. Which is really the same. This is a very good word, he says. So, bhava So nidhi means ocean. Bhava ambha. Ambaha means the water. This word bhava is an important one. Bhava means bhavati iti bhava. Bhava means the following. So just closing this loop on this. So here's what all of our experiences in life is. Those experiences are characterized by the following assessment of yourself. How you visualize yourself. And the specifics may be all different. You may be male, you may be female, you may be Indian, you may be American, doesn't matter who, whatever it is, but every being, not just human beings, every being. But here we are talking about a very conscious, evolved being called the human being. Every human being has the following experience common to all of us. And that means that bhava, it consists of two elements. I am not totally okay just now. And two, I hope to be okay in the future. These are the two elements of bhava. We keep postponing. Our assessment is through our minds. Details may differ. The severity of the issues may differ, but generally the prevailing thing is I am not completely okay. And but I don't lose hope. I keep on working. This is called bhavambho nidhau, ocean of samsara. So samsara means samyak sarati iti samsara, as you know. So the word samsara means continuous movement. And in fact, it's a circle. Life is a circle. It's not a straight line. We think life is a straight line. It is a circle. Series of circles. Go back to the same thing. We're born again, trying to get better. Run out of time. We're born again, always trying to get better. And the words of the Vedic Mahavakya break that circle, break that samsara by saying not that you will be okay, you are okay as you are now. You are as okay as Ishvara. In fact, you are Ishvara. You are the Brahman. This is the meaning of Tattvamasi. You are okay. Not you will be okay. Keep working, keep working, keep working. And this is what is called Sakshat Karanam. That has an immediate effect on me because until now I don't have this understanding. And I cannot have this understanding until I make up my mind a little better. But if I've purified my mind through the sadhanas, then when these words are spoken, and you understand, my goodness, it's gone. The whole samsara just in Hindi they say, Bhavasagar sab sukh gaya hai. It just, like in a dream, the whole thing disappears. So this is what is called Sakshat Karanam. Yat Sakshat Karanat Bhaven na Punaravritti. In fact, the only difference between waking up from a dream and waking up from the Jagrat Avastha is, in the dream you cannot even find traces of the dream, even if you try. But in the Jagrat Avastha, you will see that what seemed like a dangerous situation is rendered harmless. It's like the rope becoming a snake becoming a rope. You may still see in the dream the rope also disappears. You see the difference? In the dream the rope also disappears. You cannot even see the rope. Snake disappears, rope disappears, everything disappears. In Jagrat Avastha, what you take to be a snake becomes a rope, harmless rope, enjoyable. The whole world becomes enjoyable. It becomes entertainment. Right now it's a very serious matter. But when you understand it is just a play, then an inner smile comes and says, oh my God, what did I do? What did I take it to be? So this is what is called Sakshat Karanam. And so with that, so we can now finish the sentence that Yasyeva Spuranam Sadatmakam. So Asatkalparthakam Bhasate. So now the whole discussion and explanation will be the light of the seer alone lights up the objects in the world. Asat kalparthakam bhasate. Yas sakshat yasya eva sphuranam sadatmakam asat kalparthakam bhasate. So that means that the Sat is responsible for the Mithya. Responsible meaning that, so this we will study in more detail perhaps next time. So what we will see is that the Mithya is characterized by a couple of things. Couple of things. So one is that, so this asat kalparthakam or mithya which is really the entire experience. All experiences in the life are mithya. They have two elements, two ways of looking at it. One is, it is not really there. So you can even say not really there. It is there but not really there. This is an important thing that we will study. Because if you can just go through this, if you look at the very first verse of the Manasa Ullasa, just look at this. Satta Spuranayoho. In fact, I made in the point number 3, I made a spelling mistakes, which we are not studying today. Drishye adhyaste sattashu. There's something wrong. It's not sattashu. It should be sattashu. Anyway, that we'll do later on. But going back to verse number 1. Satta spuranayoho drishyeshu darshana anupapattim pattina avataranam. So the English translation to that is, wait a second. How can you say that the objects that you see do not have their own existence and their own knowingness? This doesn't make any sense to me. Because I see there is a table, the table is there. How can you say it's not there? So the mithya is characterized by two things we should think about. One is that it is not really there. So, for example, a ornament is not really there. It appears to be there in a form. And so, but anything, in fact, one of the things we can see is that anything that changes is mithya. Anirvachaniyam. All experiences are just coming and going. It's just, so just like the light through a film, it makes the film move. Then all the objects in the film are really not really. Only the unchanging light in that sense is the reality. The rest of them are nothing but play of shadow and light and so on and so forth. So it is not there. Then the second one, which is very interesting and we should really think about, is mithya is jadam. Meaning it is inert. Satyam or Sat is effulgence. So just like electricity going through some appliance, the appliance by itself is inert. The electricity has the ability to enliven the appliance, but once it is removed, so the liveliness of an appliance is not its own. Anyway, so those are the two things from the Mithya. And so this first question will be answered right away in verse number 2, 3, and 4. We will go through this in more detail, and we will see the vision that we have to see is, my goodness, my whole vision of my life's experiences is nothing but my own projection. Very much like the entire dream is nothing but my projection. And the waking experience is nothing but a dream of a different kind, but a dream. This is the vision that we need to aspire to by looking at the elements of it. Be clear about all of the pieces of the puzzle. And when it all comes together, we will see that, really speaking, the entire Jagrat Avastha, which I am projecting, and I'm just taking myself to be one of the elements of that projection, when in fact I am completely separate from it. This is the vision that is being created. So we will continue with this in the subsequent classes, but this is the beginning of the third verse. Yasyas Puranam Sadatmakam Asatkalparthakam Bhasate Yat Sakshat Karanat Bhavenna Punaravrittir Bhavambo Nidhav Sakshat Tattvamasi Diveta Vachasa Yo Bodhayatyatrisha Bodhayati Ashritan Yat Sakshat Karanat Bhavenna Punaravrittir Bhavambo Nidhav Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurthaye. So I'll start with that. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityo Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om.
And one question is,
Yeah.
when you say like a dream state and a waking state looks really real, but it's nothing but dream. That means I am also giving a projection, and that's why I am in that dream kind status, right?
Yeah.
So whatever I see, it is just my own projection.
Yes. Including your own body-mind.
Body-mind.
That is also part of the projection. Yeah.
So when we are talking about ashritan, isn't there also an element to take refuge also as an element of surrender?
Yes,
Of
of
your
course.
ego, so that you can understand what is
Yeah, I think so, but it's all part of the same one. It just means a very deep connection with the teaching. So for example, in my case, there is nothing else I would rather do in my life. nothing comes even close to it. This is what I have to do. So I've just taken refuge to it. And initially also, it happened very quickly for me. Once I could see what was happening, I said, my goodness, wow. And so everything else became secondary, and everything else became kind of like a make-believe. I had to pretend I'm interested. In my job, I had to keep on pretending I'm interested. And it was necessary for me to pretend, because I would have lost my job otherwise. And same thing with the family and friends and so on. It's all make-believe. Inside there is nothing but me and my understanding. This is the ashritan. So in the very beginning, also I took ashraya with Swami Dayanandji. Once I could see, of course, with meeting with Swami Chinmanand was very dramatic. I must say that. But it wasn't until I met Swami Dayanand where I could see the beginning of the end. This can be done. And so then I moved and changed everything. So that was the ashraya, ashritan, mentally. And then it strengthens. After a while, then the guru also fades in that manner. The teaching becomes the most important. So that's why, then when Swami Maheshananji came along, then I could see, my goodness, this is some wonderful teaching. And same thing with all aspects of other teachers. Swami Paramarthananda, when you see his Ashtavakra teaching and so on, you say, wow, this is the real stuff. And so all pieces of the puzzle enforce the clarity that goes on. So your ashraya is to the teaching, but initially it is through the people, through the guru that happens. So you ready to move to Chicago? Please come and just say a few words about your move. Come. Sujata Dave.
We're gonna miss
I
her.
know. Tell us about why you're moving.
So mainly the family is the reason. My daughter was in Chico, California, and she moved to Dallas. I have only one child, and so I thought if I need to go see her, I